With well over 1,000 episodes, WWE Raw is a celebrated part of American television. Except, of course, when it comes to the Emmys. Named after a tube that was used in early TV cameras, the Emmy is given to recognize outstanding achievements in television with an award that's a statue of a woman holding an atom. Yeah, the whole thing really doesn't make a lot of sense when you stop to think about it. Anyway, reports are stating that WWE has recently been campaigning to win this illustrious trophy, but to no avail. But why not? Well, that's a really good question, and while I'm sure WWE has plenty of professional people working on the case, I thought I might just lend my hand and take a look at the problem myself. And while I'm sure that I won't unearth anything that WWE doesn't already know, it's still the topic of this episode. Because today, Dave knows how WWE might win an Emmy. So for this episode, I'm going to be employing just a little bit of simple pattern recognition. I'm going to be looking at some past winners and at television culture in general in order to see what I feel WWE's best approach is to taking home the gold. Now first, I want to begin by saying that WWE is already doing one thing right, and that's campaigning. Since the best start to winning an Emmy is to let people know that you want one, as the Emmys, like the Oscars, has an academy of industry professionals that vote on who should win. And creating a buzz in order to get on the radar is a good way to do it. However, just like in all cases, awareness is only the first step, and without a second, awareness alone is near useless. So, what's the follow-up here? Well, first, you have to submit. And no, I don't mean like when you're put into an ankle lock. I'm talking about submitting an example of your work for consideration. If you don't submit, then you can't get nominated. You gotta be in it to win it. It's just that simple. But this is where things begin to get interesting. Because unlike the Oscars, where the Academy watches the entire movie, the Emmys aren't always being judged off your entire body of work for that year. It's just not feasible to have every Academy member watch every single episode of every single TV show that's out there. So instead, submissions are chosen by the show's producers themselves, where they pick the episodes that they think best represent why they should win the award. And this is one pivotal decision where a show can first go wrong. Now, there are a few determining factors when it comes to making this choice, but first, we need to know how many episodes can a show submit. And for that, well, it all comes down to the category that they're looking to enter. For example, a comedy or drama series can enter 6 episodes for their respective categories, while a variety, reality, or animated series can only submit 1. On the other hand, a limited series enters the whole thing. And while you might think that it's pretty cut and dry to figure out what category your show belongs in, there is a surprising amount of wiggle room. For example, many shows contain different elements, like Amazon's The Boys, fantastic show by the way. It does contain a fair amount of dark humor in it, but it is also a heavily dramatic series too. Or let's just look at The Simpsons. It's both an animated program as well as a sitcom. Although, does it really matter which category you choose? Well, keep in mind, if you submit as a comedy, it will be judged compared to other comedic shows. And if the competition is funnier, then that greatly impacts your show's chances of winning. Thus, choosing the right category is very important. But alright, with all that being said, what should Raw apply for? Well, it has been reported that WWE has been lobbying specifically for the Outstanding Structured Reality Award for the Primetime Creative Arts Emmys. And while this may not be as prestigious as some of the other Emmys, like Outstanding Drama Series, it is an understandable award to go for. However, is it necessarily the smartest move? Well, let's just take a closer look. When we examine this award, we'll see that it's only about 5 years old. Before that, it started out as the Outstanding Reality Program Award, which was then split into 2 different parts, unstructured and structured, which is the one that concerns us here today. This means that while a show is a reality program, it contains consistent story elements that mostly adhere to a reoccurring template, meaning that there's a pretty regular structure to it, and Raw definitely has that. However, you know what else does? The show Shark Tank. What does that have to do with anything, you ask? Well, I bring that up because Shark Tank has consistently taken home the award since its inception, except for, of course, last year when it lost to Queer Eye. But it was still nominated, and that leads to my next point. Because when we look at the nominees for this award, there is definitely a bit of familiarity there. Since it was created, Shark Tank and Antiques Roadshow have been nominated every single year, including this one. Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives has been nominated 5 times, which is just one more time than the show Who Do You Think You Are? Mythbusters was nominated every single year to the end of its original run with Jamie Hyneman and Adam Savage in 2016, as was Undercover Boss. And that was the exact same year that Lip Sync Battle started appearing consistently until this year. I could go on, but the point is that if you examine things, you'll notice that for the most part, it seems that the same shows keep getting nominated year after year for this award. And as soon as one mainstay leaves, a new constant takes its place. However, there is one small glimmer of hope, because when looking back on past years, you may notice that sometimes there is a surprising entry, a show that normally isn't nominated but still appears as a contender. But while that's great and all, I don't think that this is the category that WWE should be aiming for. I mean, it's just one open slot among a sea of other returning shows competing for the exact same award. The odds are not exactly in WWE's favor if this is the award that they're clamoring for. This category is just too locked down with favorites, and I think they would have a much better time going for another award. Which award is that? Well, it's one that I think is fairly obvious. The Outstanding Stunt Coordination Award. WWE has gone back and forth on whether they truly want to embrace that wrestling is predetermined or not, even though Vince McMahon had already testified that it was before the Senate. However, if they just buckle down and really relish in their scripted nature and stop worrying about exposing the business, then WWE can really lobby and pitch why they deserve to win this award, as they can finally play to their strengths. And now that this award's on the table, let's go ahead and examine the stunt category. Like the Reality Program Award, this category is a Primetime Creative Arts Emmy, and it was also split into two parts as well in 2013. One category for drama, limited series, or movie, and another category for a comedy or variety show. And I think WWE could actually qualify as either a drama series or a variety. But now, if we look at the drama category, we'll notice that it has a very different pattern than the Structured Reality Award. The winners and nominees tend to be way more varied. Sure, there is still some repeat offenders, but for the most part, being nominated and winning seems like it could be anyone's game. Although, that's not to say that it's necessarily my pick, because let's not forget about the comedy and variety version. Well, not necessarily a comedy per se, I do think that Raw could qualify as a variety show. Now, this category's nominees and winners may not be as varied as the drama series version of this award, but it is still pretty close, and there are a few additional reasons why I say this is WWE's best route to taking home the gold. Number one, putting it out as a drama may not work out as well, since a lot of heavier stunt work goes into drama programs. Just think of all the cop shows that are out there. That's a lot of explosions, car chases, and shootouts to contend with. However, on the comedy side of things, stunts don't get nearly as hectic, thus making the competition a bit more reachable. But more importantly, the reason why I think WWE stands its best chance in this category in particular is because of last year's winner, Glow. That's right, the comedy about pro wrestling won this award, and it's also been nominated again this year. So my thinking is, if Academy voters in the stunt category like a sitcom with some wrestling sprinkled in, then that should be more than enough to signal that they would just love to give WWE the trophy. And in this case, we really don't have to worry about the comedy side of things too much. While that is still a part of the award's title, the focus is really on the stunt work above all else. And furthermore, when we look at other nominees like Saturday Night Live, this just screams what the campaign has to be. WWE just needs to sell themselves by saying that here we have a live broadcast, theater and around, sometimes improvised stunt show spectacular that also has the exact kind of action that we already know you have awarded for excellence, but there's even more of it. Looking at Raw this way, it almost becomes undeniable that WWE just needs to pick up the Emmy win. And so, now that we have the category set, all we have to do is determine which exact episode to submit. And while some might be tempted to go for something like Raw 25, I say don't even bother, since the nostalgia trip is probably going to be lost on a lot of non-wrestling fans. My suggestion, since we are going for stunts in a comedy category here, is for the July 29th episode of Monday Night Raw, which saw Cedric Alexander jumping off the Titantron, some comedic mayhem with a pregnant woman winning the 24/7 title, and it also had some of that awesome wrestling stunt coordination like when we saw Ricochet win a gauntlet match to become the new #1 contender for the United States title. And on top of all of that, there is one last reason why I like this category for Raw. It's because of the stigma attached to pro wrestling. Look, we all know that wrestling carries a certain connotation with mainstream audiences who may not think too highly of it in the first place. But by using the variety aspect to sneak it into a comedy category, WWE can better appeal to voters who may not necessarily be ready to take wrestling seriously. I say WWE needs to strategize around this, as I think it's the biggest hurdle. Glow has given wrestling a foothold, so it's time to exploit it. The Academy needs to get used to seeing wrestling up for submission. WWE should stop treating Raw like it's the favorite child, and instead it should nominate SmackDown and NXT, plus offering up WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble for special programming awards, as well as putting up their own crew for awards like directing, music, and camera work. Furthermore, WWE should see if it could work together with other promotions. Impact, Ring of Honor, Chikara, MLW, and dare I say, AEW should all submit. This would make voters see so much wrestling that they would start to get used to it, or maybe even enjoy it, which in turn could loosen up the reins to start getting it into other categories as well. And maybe, just maybe, in time, dare I say, they may even decide to create a brand new award to celebrate achievements and excellence for one of television's oldest types of shows with an award called Outstanding Professional Wrestling Program. And in the off chance that WWE hasn't thought to do this and they decide to give it a try after watching this video and it works out for them, well, just remember me in your acceptance speech. But hey, what do you think? Should WWE have an Emmy? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you know when a new episode launches. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.